Okay, so this is the start of the Microsoft Flight Simulator.
2.0 was launched in 1984. Minor improvements were made to the graphics as well as the game's precision. With version 2.0, it was also possible to use a joystick or a mouse. In 1988, Microsoft released version 3.0. It came in a box with a floppy disk inside to play the game. Version 3.0 added new airports, had higher frame rates, better graphics, and it was finally possible to use external camera angles. In the following year, Flight Simulator 4.0 came out. The box was almost identical to the previous Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it wasn't very clear which version you had, since all the newer box said was new version. You had to know which artwork to look out for. Anyway, version 4.0 featured upgraded aircraft models, dynamic scenery, random weather, and special modes, including a mode where you could fly a World War I airplane to shoot down enemies. It also had some very beautiful, nostalgic music. Released at the end of 1993, Flight Simulator version 5.0 ramped up the realism using textures to create scenery for the first time. Graphics and aircraft models were further enhanced, weather systems upgraded, artificial intelligence was introduced, and users could modify their cockpits for each aircraft. It was also the first game in the series to have sound effects. In 1995, Microsoft Flight Simulator 5.1 was the first version to be released on CD-ROM. It featured satellite imagery, faster performance, and it had many weather effects, like storms. There was also a program to build your own airports and cockpit panels. After the release of Windows 95, Microsoft developed a flight simulator for the newer operating system. It was almost the same as its predecessor, but the simulator had better frame rates and additional aircraft. It also included major airports outside of Europe and the US for the first time. The next edition, Flight Simulator 98, came in 1997. The game was a huge success and sold over 1 million copies. It was the first to really take advantage of 3D environments with graphic cards through Microsoft's DirectX technology. Flight Simulator 98 had better performance, more modeled airports, distinct sounds for every type of aircraft, and a helicopter. 2 years later, Flight Simulator 2000 was released. Many were disappointed that the game demanded a high-end computer to play it, and even on expensive systems, frame rate stuttering was a problem in denser areas of maps. Flight Simulator 2000 was a major improvement in terms of graphics and details, incorporating rain and snow for the first time, while also allowing users to download real-world weather conditions. New aircraft were introduced, including the Boeing 777, which had recently entered service at the time. And there was the supersonic Concorde. GPS made its debut and dynamic scenery was updated with more detailed models, and AI was improved to avoid collisions while taxiing. However, the most notable expansion was the 17,000 airports that were added. This brought the grand total to over 20,000 airports in-game. Fun fact, in 2001, Microsoft came up against some stiff competition in the flight simulator market when Russian software developer 1C released its first installment of the IL-2 Sturmovik series. Awards were pretty evenly split between the two games that year, with different critics acknowledging each title as the top simulator in 2001. The IL-2 Sturmovik series was named after an aircraft produced by the Soviet Union in large numbers during World War II. The developers continued producing some impressive World War II combat flight simulators, but soon lost ground to Microsoft's Flight Simulator.
Helen Hansel was able to win any competition she took part in. She was known as the contest queen because she had won 7 trips to Paris, boats, houses. She would basically take...
Continuing on, Flight Simulator 2002 was released in 2001, shortly after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Microsoft found itself at the center of much controversy because reports showed that the terrorists had used Flight Simulator to prepare for the attacks. Due to the terrorists' actions and out of respect for the victims, the Twin Towers were abruptly removed from the game. The 2002 simulator introduced air traffic control to communicate with airports and artificial intelligence aircrafts to fly alongside computer-controlled air vehicles. As expected, the visuals once again outshone all previous versions, and the game seemed to run much smoother thanks to some tinkering by Microsoft. Next up was Flight Simulator 2004, A Century of Flight, which celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Wright brothers' first aerial achievements. It featured several historical aircrafts, including the Wright Flyer that was used by the famous duo. One of the key focuses of the 2004 edition was the weather, which benefited from a revamped system. Players could now see clouds in 3D, and the weather was localized, meaning it varied according to where you were and what the weather was likely to be in that region in real life. Adding to the realism was a more reliable GPS system and more detailed air traffic control. Then came Flight Simulator X in 2006. With its higher resolution textures and a more engaging multiplayer experience, it lived up to its name by offering an X factor that had been missing from the previous titles.
Oh god, Tenerife Part 2 just occurred on runway 9. And Tenerife Part 3 within 30 seconds. Yeah, we just had a triple collateral on the runway between 3 747s and an extra 300.
Flight Simulator X allowed players to be an air traffic controller and 2 players to fly in a single airplane. The game included 18 planes, 28 detailed cities, and over 24,000 airports for the standard version, while the deluxe version had even more planes and detailed cities. While the game's frame rate was, at times, a sore issue, it nonetheless received favorable reviews, scoring an 80 on Metacritic. On top of its innovations and multiplayer capability, an expansion pack named Flight Simulator X Acceleration became available a year after the standard version was released, increasing the game's longevity by adding new missions and several more aircraft. Fun fact, the soundtrack used in the main menu for Flight Simulator X was composed, orchestrated, and produced by Stan Lepard, who's best known for his contributions to the Halo game franchise. Anyone who played Flight Simulator X will likely recognize the default audio track, Pilot for Hire, or FSX-01, which was brought back as a legacy menu option in 2020. That longevity would be sorely needed, as it turns out, since we had to wait an agonizing 14 years for the next game in the series. When it did finally arrive, though, on August 18, 2020, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 surpassed all expectations, becoming, without a doubt, the best flight simulator of all time. That's not just my opinion as a captain either. It currently holds an outstanding 91 out of a 100 score on Metacritic and has picked up several awards, including Best Sim Strategy Game at the Game Awards in 2020. Why is it so good though? Well, firstly, the graphics speak for themselves, especially if you're playing on a modern system with the best possible resolution enabled. The in-game environment is essentially a virtual recreation of the entire Earth, built using textures and data from Bing satellite imagery in conjunction with Microsoft's Azure system. This groundbreaking technology was used to generate photorealistic 3D models of buildings, trees, water, and other geographical features. Incredibly, you can fly anywhere on the planet, including above the skyscrapers in New York, the pyramids in Egypt, and even your own home. Famous landmarks everywhere in the world can be seen, and new handcrafted locations are added all the time. What's more, the flying conditions are as close to authentic as possible, with advanced physics and real-time weather updates, meaning if there's a storm outside your real window, you can fly through it and experience it from the sky in-game. The level of realism, combined with the scale of environments and seemingly endless features in this game, are breathtaking. However, when the game first came out, there was a sharp intake of breath for another reason. It was suggested that to play the game at its best, a high-end computer was needed. A minimum of 150 gigabytes of storage was required for the PC version, but the game has since become much more accessible, now that it has been released on the Xbox Series X and S, and even on the Xbox One via the Xbox Cloud. Oh yeah, and you can now even fly planes on Microsoft Flight Simulator in virtual reality, making flying more realistic than ever before. So far, 3 editions of the game have been released. The Standard Edition consists of a staggering 37,000 airports, 30 of which were handcrafted, plus 25 flyable aircraft. The Deluxe Edition adds 5 aircraft and replaces 5 more airports with handcrafted versions. Then there's the Premium Deluxe Edition, which adds another 5 aircraft and replaces 5 more airports with handcrafted versions.
This game, you're not ready for it.
So we'll have a look at the real thing now, if you know what I mean. I'll just load it up. It takes about a minute. So you can talk about yourself. So this is Flight Simulator 2020, which is, there's a new version coming out later this year, 2024, which is supposed to be mind-blowing, but I expect it will, because this is pretty good. And because Paul said he was keen on Concorde, I've downloaded Concorde, so you can have a go at flying Concorde, if you wish. It has an autopilot, which is handy for letting Concorde take off, because if you don't do it exactly 100% correct, it aborts the flight, so it just stops. So the AI takes off, but the AI is not so good at landing correctly, so you have to manually land it. But I'll show you what it does once it's loaded. It's got this, it's showing all these screens, but it's basically loading the program into the computer's memory. And now, I mean, it said it was 150 gigabytes, but it's more like 250 gigabytes now, because about every month there's updates. So you do need a reasonably big amount of storage for it. There's also probably a few hundred gigabytes of add-ons that you can buy, so you'd probably be safe with 500 gigabytes. I did put a new 2 terabyte hard drive in this. Oh, here we go. So you get this eventually comes on the world map, and you can select your plane. I've pre-selected Concorde. You can select your departure airport, which I always go for Manchester, because I know it can take off from there. I do try and land it at Liverpool, but I don't know whether it's the AI or whether it doesn't want to land at Liverpool. I don't know. Up here you have the weather, and if I do it in the evening then, and you don't want to be dark, you can slide it back to daytime so you're not in the dark. But that's okay, we're in the daytime now. And then we just press fly. And it has a kind of opening sequence which is quite nice. I'll just put it on full screen. Oh, no, I'll load it as well. Just to get rid of the bottom. change it every time and save it, but it still goes back to keep changes, well, I wish you would.
Cleared for takeoff runway 23, left speedbird 007.
a Cessna, something less intimidating. If you go to go to main menu. Yeah, we'll come out of that. Yeah. I mean, beautiful plane, but not the easiest to fly on this. Anybody reading Concorde? Yeah. When did you go?
Manchester to Manchester.
Okay.
Bias to Mango. There was supersonic flight, 110 minutes. So they flew over to Amsterdam first of all, and then left out across the North Sea, supersonic.
Right.
57,000 feet, 1,430 miles an hour.
14. Wow.
Manchester was the backup airfield.
That's right.
Because Manchester, particularly the
It doesn't hold the record for the most flights in and out of Concorde with data. Surprising, that's a record. They had one year when the Grand National was on, they had 4 Concordes chartered from
So I got a little fact sheet on all Concorde, courtesy of Janice.
and they were doing day flights out to Bay Biscay and back.
That's just a fact sheet of Concorde. Anybody using chat GPT? It's like a kind of super Google. It's really good if you just it's you know all the AI talk. So basically what chat GPT does is it searches. It says it searches the whole web. Maybe it does. And it extracts all the information. So instead of you going through Google